She said, "Merry Christmas, honey. I'm leaving you for your boss. The necklace you bought me paid for our flight." She smirked at me on Christmas morning, dressed for the airport. I just smiled. I had replaced the diamonds with fakes. My boss was fired yesterday and police were waiting for her. I, 35 male, had been with my girlfriend, Sienna, 32, for 6 years. We lived a life of comfortable ambition in a high-rise apartment in Atlanta, Georgia. I was a senior project manager at a major logistics corporation, a good job with a salary of $160,000. Sienna was a talented freelance graphic designer, earning a solid $90,000 a year. We had a great life, trendy restaurants in Midtown, weekends hiking in the North Georgia mountains, and a wide circle of friends. I was in love, and I thought we were building a future together. Thank you for watching. Stay with me until the end. The story holds a twist you won't expect. Subscribe to the channel and support its growth. The big career opportunity that was supposed to cement that future was Project Chimera. It was a massive, $50 million software integration project that I had personally pitched to the board of directors. It was my baby. I was appointed the lead project manager. The stakes were enormous. If I succeeded, it meant a guaranteed promotion to director and a performance bonus that was expected to be upwards of $200,000. It was my chance to finally break into the executive ranks. The project was my entire focus. I was working grueling hours fueled by coffee and ambition. I expected my partner, Sienna, and my direct superior, a charismatic vice president named Marcus, to be my biggest supporters. Instead, their reactions were strangely dismissive, almost contemptuous. The conflict began subtly. Marcus, who had publicly praised the project, was privately dismissive in our one-on-one meetings. He would second-guess my decisions and downplay my team's achievements. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Leo," he'd say. "This is a marathon, not a sprint." Sienna was even worse. She complained endlessly about my long hours. She mocked my dedication to the project, calling it an obsession. "It's just a job, Leo," she said one night when I was working late. "You're acting like you're curing cancer." "This is our future," I replied. "That bonus is a down payment on a house." "If it ever happens," she scoffed. Marcus says the project is facing major headwinds. Her constant negativity, paired with her frequent name-dropping of my boss, created a toxic cloud of doubt in my own home. The two people who should have been in my corner were instead making me feel isolated and foolish for even trying. I was fighting a battle on two fronts, one at the office to make my project a success, and one at home to justify my ambition. Update 1. As Project Chimera moved into its most critical phase, strange things started to happen. Small, unexplainable setbacks began to plague us. A key vendor would suddenly pull out. A piece of code that had tested perfectly would inexplicably fail during a demonstration. Marcus was always the first to point the finger, and his finger always pointed at me. He would call me into his office, his expression a mask of deep disappointment, and talk about my failure to manage expectations. At the same time, Sienna's behavior grew more and more bizarre. She became incredibly secretive with her phone. She was always texting, and would quickly hide her screen if I walked into the room. She and Marcus seemed to be in constant communication. She claimed it was because she was doing some freelance design work for his department, a story that felt thin and rehearsed. My secret preparations began not with a plan to move, but with a desperate need for the truth. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being systematically undermined by the two people I was supposed to trust the most. My project was being sabotaged, and my relationship felt like a lie. My quiet planning started with a quiet action. I installed a keylogger program on our home computer, the one Sienna often used for her work. It felt like a gross violation of privacy, but my intuition was screaming that I was the one being violated. I also enabled the automatic recording feature on my car's dashcam, which captured both video and in-cabin audio. I didn't have to wait long. The keylogger captured everything. It recorded their emails, their chat logs, their entire conspiracy laid bare in cold, hard text. They were having an affair. But it was so much more than that. It was an act of corporate and personal treason. Marcus was feeding Sienna confidential information about the project's vulnerabilities. She, in turn, was leaking that information to one of our direct competitors. The competitor was using the information to subtly counter our moves in the marketplace, making it look like my project was failing. Their plan was monstrously simple. They would continue to sabotage Project Chimera until I was fired in disgrace. Marcus would then step in, miraculously, solve the problems he had secretly created. take credit for the project's success, and get the promotion and bonus that should have been mine. Once he had the money, he and Sienna planned to run away together, leaving me with a ruined career and a broken heart. The rage I felt was so cold and pure it was almost calming. There would be no emotional confrontation. There would be only a methodical, calculated revenge. My first step was to play their game. I pretended to be the beaten, stressed-out project manager, on the verge of collapse. I let them see my frustration. I let them believe they were winning. My second step was to set the trap. Christmas was approaching. I told Sienna that, despite the project's problems, I had received a small advance on my expected bonus. I told her I wanted to buy her something special for Christmas. I took her to the most expensive jewelry store in Atlanta and bought her a stunning diamond necklace with a price tag of $40,000. She was ecstatic. She saw it not as a gift of love, but as a down payment on her future with Marcus. She had no idea it was a prop in the final act of my revenge. Update 2. The week before Christmas was a blur of calculated moves. I compiled all the evidence, the emails, the chat logs, the audio from my dashcam of their secret meetings in my car. I created a detailed, time-stamped report that laid out their entire conspiracy, from the affair to the corporate espionage. On the morning of Christmas Eve, I requested an emergency, confidential meeting with the CEO and the head of the board. In the sterile quiet of the executive boardroom, I presented my evidence. I played the audio recordings. I showed them the emails. The look on their faces shifted from disbelief to cold fury. The fallout for Marcus was immediate. The board voted unanimously to terminate his employment, effective immediately. They escorted him from the building with a security detail. They initiated legal proceedings to sue him for damages and filed a report with the authorities for corporate espionage. My boss was fired and disgraced in a single morning. My next stop was the jewelry store. I explained the situation to the manager, a man I had developed a good rapport with. With the help of his in-house jeweler, we carefully removed the real diamonds from the necklace and replaced them with flawless, custom-cut cubic zirconia. The fakes were indistinguishable from the real thing to an untrained eye. The manager, disgusted by the story, agreed to hold the real diamonds for me in his vault. I went home to a triumphant Sienna. She knew Marcus was planning to make his final move to oust me after the holidays. She thought she was on the verge of getting everything she ever wanted. I gave her the necklace. She was breathless. The confrontation scene was not a confrontation at all. It was a quiet, perfectly executed checkmate on Christmas morning. I woke up to find her already dressed, her bags packed by the door. She was wearing the necklace. She walked over to me as I was sipping my coffee, a cruel, triumphant smirk on her face. It was then she delivered her lines. "Merry Christmas, honey," she said. "I'm leaving you for your boss. The necklace you bought me paid for our flight." She expected me to be devastated, to be broken. I just smiled. "That's a shame," I said calmly. "You might have some trouble at the airport." Her smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "Well, for one thing," I continued, "Marcus was fired yesterday for corporate espionage. The board has a recording of you conspiring with him. The company is pressing charges. I believe there's a warrant out for your arrest." The color drained from her face. She was speechless. "And the necklace," I added, taking a final sip of my coffee. "Those are fakes. The real diamonds are safe in a vault. The only thing that necklace will pay for is a lesson in what happens when you betray the wrong person." She stared at me, her entire world collapsing in a single, horrifying moment. Then she ran. I didn't stop her. I just sat there in the quiet of my apartment on Christmas morning and listened to the sirens get closer. Final update. A year later, my life was completely transformed. The story of the betrayal and my subsequent takedown of Marcus and Sienna became a quiet legend at my company. I was hailed as a hero. I had saved Project Chimera from a competitor and rooted out a traitor in our executive ranks. The project, now free from sabotage, was a spectacular success. I was promoted to director with a salary and stock option package that dwarfed what I had been making before. The bonus I received was over 300 zalavarzad. Sienna had been arrested at the airport, just as I had planned. Faced with the mountain of evidence, she took a plea deal, serving 6 months in prison and receiving a hefty fine for her role in the conspiracy. Marcus was facing a much longer sentence, his legal battles draining his savings and destroying his reputation. I sold the apartment I had shared with Sienna and bought a beautiful house in a quiet neighborhood north of the city. I was thriving. I had a new job, a new home, and a new sense of purpose. About a year after that Christmas, I was at an industry conference. A man approached me, an older, respected executive who had once worked with Marcus at a previous company. "Leo," he said, shaking my hand. "I just wanted to say, I'm not surprised by what Marcus did, but I am impressed by how you handled it." He told me that Marcus had a long history of unethical behavior, of stealing credit and backstabbing colleagues to get ahead. A lot of us knew what he was, the man admitted. But we never had the proof to stop him. We were all too afraid of his power. I'm sorry that we, his colleagues, let him get to a position where he could do so much damage to you. His words were a final, unexpected piece of closure. It was a reminder that the betrayal was not a reflection of my failure, but of their flawed, corrupt characters. I left that conference and flew home to Atlanta. I reflected on the brutal lesson I had learned. The most dangerous enemies are not the ones who oppose you openly, but the ones who smile at you while they sharpen the knife. The betrayal was a conspiracy between the two people I should have been able to trust the most, my partner and my boss. My revenge was not just in the cold, methodical execution of their downfall. It was in my own survival and success. It was in taking the project they tried to destroy and making it the cornerstone of my new career. I found a new partner, an architect who valued honesty and integrity above all else. My life was rebuilt on a foundation of my own strength, a foundation that no betrayal could ever shake again. I was happy, I was at peace, and I was finally free.